China. Germany's government has sent its first official delegation to China for talks this week, despite being sworn into office more than 6 months ago. The Vice Chancellor and Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil is leading the group, with meetings expected to focus on major trade issues, including rare earths. The talks come after Germany's foreign minister called off his planned visit last month, and amid rising warnings from the Chancellor Friedrich Merz about the dangers of relying on China. Annetta and Elaine are across the story from all angles this morning, and they're joining us now from Hong Kong and Frankfurt. Elaine, we'll start with you in Hong Kong first. Just give us the take ultimately on how China is looking at the relationship with Germany.
Right, Sylvia. So co-chairing the financial dialogue today with Klingbeil will be China's Vice Premier and Trade Czar He Lifeng. And ties are looking pretty frosty now, with the meeting taking place at a time as Germany is debating its business exposure to China in light of Beijing's control over rare earths and also Germany's trade deficit with China. And Germany is also planning to ban China's telecoms giant Huawei from its 6G network. And Klingbeil, before departing for Beijing, said, "We don't shy away from competition, but it must be fair." And now Chinese analysts cited by Chinese state media describe this trip as sort of an icebreaker for bilateral relationship, especially in light of the foreign minister having postponed his trip that was originally planned for the end of October. And they said this could lay the groundwork for future visits by the chancellor or the president. But these Chinese analysts also criticized Berlin's approach to China, calling them contradictory. On the one hand, Klingbeil expecting to talk about cooperation, but also with Berlin's tighter scrutiny and also suspicions about China. And perhaps this reflects the internal debate that's taking place within Germany. But Chinese state media has also been highlighting this data point, which is that China has replaced the U.S. as Germany's largest trading partner in the first 8 months of 2025. Now, in Germany, discussions have been focused more on the relationship with China and what that should look like, but members of the German business community in Hong Kong and China say they're happy to see dialogue taking place between the two governments. They tell me that the Chinese market is still important to Germany when it comes to cars and machinery, and also going forward robotics components. And they said Germany, as an export-focused nation, should not ignore the world's second largest economy. But they do point out that it's becoming much harder to sell China to Germany, especially with far less rotations these days between the two countries. So China wants to see Germany separating the economic and security issues, but it seems like for Western countries, those issues are increasingly intertwined. Sylvia.
Well, let's see how the conversations will unfold. In the meantime, thank you for the reporting, Elaine. And then let's turn our attention to the German angle here, because indeed, as Elaine highlighted there's an internal debate right now in Germany about what is the best approach to China. Do we have a sense of a clear policy from the German government towards China at this stage?
Well, it's getting more hostile. As Elaine pointed out, this government, especially Friedrich Merz, also with a step to banning Huawei from the 6G network. That is a step which is unprecedented. It has been discussed before by various governments, but it has never been enacted. So it's getting more hostile on the economic political front, I would say, because the suspicion is actually growing that China is more or less siding with Russia and potentially as well with India, growing that Asian sort of semi-Asian front, which is not in favor of Europe, and also the move by China to ban exports of rare earths. and as well other commodities which are crucial for the defense industry hasn't made things better, to say the least. So what we're currently facing here in Germany is also a bit of a divided world when it comes to corporates. Of course, the big corporates do see China as their most important market. It's growing, and there's a lot of pent-up demand as well from smaller companies in China for German goods. So the automakers are, of course, the most striking example. So if China doesn't work, the whole industry is getting in a crisis, which we have seen now in the recent 2 to 3 years after COVID. But now things are turning. For example, just to give you an example, Mercedes was holding a very important global event recently in China. They're just producing a specific electrified vehicle for the Chinese market. So local for local, this is what they are doing. The same holds true for Volkswagen. They invest huge sums in the Chinese market, and as well the chemical makers do the same. And the reason for that is that the future technologies, they are much more advanced in China as well when we talk about AI, because data protection is not so huge as in Europe. You can't just do a lot of R&D in that respect here on the continent. So they go to China, whereas smaller companies, sometimes they already have a chance to actually diversify itself away from China and go to India. But the big ones, the DAX ones, the big ones, they all rely on the Chinese market.